Assalamu alaikum, hormatly adamlar. İyileşler. Hoş geldiniz TASA'nın bu yılki sempozyumuna. Bu 3. heptemiz devam ediyor. Muman 5 heptede bu tormanı planlayız. 10 tane alim bilen çıkış etmeni, 10 alim bilen. Bugünkü birinci çıkışımız Atabek Atayev bilen, ondan soň olsa bir saat soň şu New York muhatı bilen 12'de, gün ortağı 12'de Yelena Orazvan çıkışı bilen devam etmekçi. Birinci çıkış edecek Atabek 2011 yılla Bulgariyanın American Üniversitesi'ni utoran ekonomika bölümünü 2015'te olsa University of Constance'dan öz ekonomikada master degree'ni alan ustadlık magistraturasını şu bir hepte soň olsa University of Vienna Avustriyadan ekonomika PhD'sini doktoranturasını almanı ümit edýär, bize üstünlük arzu edýär. Ol 2003 ýylda Turkmenistan'ın fizik olimpiadasynyň ýeňjisi bolupdyr. Ondan soň Turkmenistan AUBG scholarship programy bilen 4 ýyllyk üniversitet okuwyna stipendiýa gazandyr. O arada özünden has köpräk maglumat sorar. Ondan soň Germaniýada DAAD OSF scholarship programasyna master üçin stipendiýa tapdyr. Ondan olsa türlü yerlerde research ettir ve presentation ettir. Öz alyp barýan ilmi işi bolsa industrial organization, consumer research and microeconomics. Atabek.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
All right.
Sağol, bir de gatnaşan üçin, onu men kameram ýakman.
Okay, hello everyone, and thank you very much, first of all, for the organizers of TASA, for organizing this event and for giving me opportunity to present this research. So let me give you some background about the research, and then I will tell you how I'm going to proceed with the presentation. So the research the research project that I'm going to talk about is my job market paper. So I've been presenting it in a lot of different places, and hopefully you will find it interesting as well, just like the other people who invited me to present it. And the topic of the presentation is called Uncertain Product Availability in Search Markets. So it might, I'm pretty much sure it sounds a bit quite technical probably for the people who are not specialized in economics. It sounds actually quite technical for people even specialized in economics, but not in my field. So the first thing that I want to do for the presentation is that I would like to explain you what the search markets mean, what uncertain product availability means. I'll give you some examples. I will explain you. I'll give you some short introduction. I'm doing it because I was told that people who are attending this conference are from different backgrounds. So taking that into account, I will try to be sometimes very loose with the definitions, so that people can have idea what's going on, what I'm talking about. And I will try to, although it's a theoretical paper, I will not provide you any equations, any mathematical formulas. I will just try to focus on the intuition of my findings. And and finally, I will show you why this is important, and then share my results with you. So let me start with explaining the title of the presentation. So the title of the presentation actually consists of two parts mainly. The first is Uncertain Product Availability, and the second part is Search Markets. So let me start from the second part, Search Markets. And within the second part, let me start with the last part, Markets. So let me explain you what market means for people who are not specialized in economics. So loosely speaking, market is a place where buyers and sellers trade. So sellers have some products to sell, buyers want to buy those products, and then they come to the place and they trade. So when we talk about the markets, and when I say it's a place where buyers and sellers trade, the first thing that comes to your mind is probably like a bazar, how we say it in Turkmen. So there's a bazar, there are lots of buyers and there are lots of sellers. They trade a lot of different things. And that's correct. Bazar is one of the examples of the markets, but this is a kind of, I would like to here emphasize about the two types of markets. One is a physical market. So Bazar is one of the examples. You can think of a mall or some grocery shops. These are all the examples of physical markets. And in all of them, there are buyers and there are sellers, and then they engage in trade. But there are also non-physical markets. The classic example is a labor market. So in the labor market, usually you don't have one specific place where employers and potential employees meet and then they try to negotiate their contracts. Usually the companies, which are the buyers of the labor, they post their advertisements telling that they're looking for some specialists in certain area. And then the sellers, which are potential employees, they can apply to the job. So there is no one physical place. And also lately, the other example of the non-physical markets are online markets. For instance, when I say online markets, you can think about Amazon, eBay. So these are like a huge platforms, online platforms over which buyers and sellers can interact. So there's no physical market. It's like an online, it's on the web. And then this online platforms give you the opportunity to interact. So now let's move to the part search. This is a more interesting part. So what search means is that buyers usually don't know the characteristics and the prices of the product. So what this means is that, for instance, if let's say you want to buy something, anything, like you want to buy a TV. What you do is that you don't know the prices, you don't know the quality, you don't know how they look like. So the first thing you do is that you probably go online or you go to the brick and mortar store, and then you start searching for the TVs. You start searching for the prices, you start searching the qualities, maybe how they feel, how they look like. And so the word search means that the buyers actually don't have those information about the products. They don't know the price, they don't know the characteristics, therefore they have to search for it. They have to spend time, they have to spend effort, maybe some psychological cost, so they engage into search. So now if we combine those markets and search, so together it means search markets. So search markets means it's a market where buyers and sellers engage into trade, but the buyers, they don't have information about the product that the sellers are selling. Therefore, they have to search. And during my talk, I would like to concentrate on here, as you can see with the red, about the prices. So what I mean by prices is that I assume that consumers know everything about the product, all the characteristics of the product, but they don't know the price of the product. So they have to search for the price. All right. So these are the search markets. And now the main part of the talk, certain product availability. This is a kind of my main contribution to the literature. So now, once I told you about the search and about the markets, now that the buyers have to search for the product, now it might be a bit intuitive about what uncertain product availability means. So what this means is that, as I told you, I will concentrate on the case where consumers don't know the prices. So what I say is that in this paper, yes, they don't know the prices, but they also don't know whether the product is available. So for instance, if you will go to the shop, let's say you want to buy a jacket. Before going to the shop, you are not sure, you cannot be almost sure that the shop has a jacket that you're looking for. Might be that they simply don't sell the jacket. Might be that they just don't, they ran out of the jackets. So reasons may be a lot. So now, when we combine uncertain product availability and search markets, I hope you can see that what the markets that I would like to talk about is the markets where buyers don't know the prices and they don't know whether any given specific seller has the product. And in order to find those prices and whether the product is available, they have to engage into search. So that's the main idea. So now I described you about the search and the search markets, especially that the consumers don't know product availability. You might be wondering, like, why do we care about why consumers search? Or does it play any role how consumers search? So actually, it turns out that it does play a very significant role. In particular, there is a very strong relationship between how consumers search and how sellers set prices. So for example, if suppose that sellers are in the market where consumers do not search too much. Let's say it's an online market, and then people in that online market are mostly from generation, I don't know, millennials, let's say millennials, the older generation within the generation of millennials, so that they don't search too much, they don't want to spend time, they just go and buy from the first buyer whenever they find the product. And if the sellers know that the consumers do not search too much, which means that they do not visit their competitors, so that they cannot compare prices with their competitors, then the sellers have an incentive to charge very high prices. Or even in the case of like in Badr, in our Turkmenistan, you can imagine like if the sellers know that the buyers will not search too much, they know that they will not walk away from them, so they can charge high prices. But on the other hand, let's say it's a different market for the different generation, let's say generation Z, who are online all the time, and then they like to search and then to find the cheapest product. And it's the case, if the consumers search a lot and the buyers search a lot and the sellers know that they search a lot, then the sellers would charge very low prices, because they know that the buyers, if they charge high prices, then the buyers just walk away from them, because they know that the price of the rivals will be lower. I hope that it makes sense and you got the intuition. So the main idea is that if the buyers don't search, the prices will be higher. If the buyers search, prices will be lower. And now the next question is like, well, you may ask, all right, so there is this relationship between how buyers search and how sellers set the prices. But why should we still care? Is it the main factor so the way how buyers search, is that the main factor that sellers charge certain prices? Well, actually, let me give you these examples. So the first example is a paper by Alexander and Kulaev. And Kulaev works, I think, in the Federal Reserve. And he did a research of the US mortgage markets. So what he found in that market is that actually around 50% of the borrowers, so the buyers, they don't search more than one bank. So they just go to the first bank. So they have, let's say the buyers have an account in the bank, saving accounts and checking accounts. And so they go and then they get the mortgage, whatever the price that is. So they usually do not search much. They don't go and check the prices from the other banks. And the question that they asked is, what would happen to the market if 20% of the buyers would search one more bank? And they estimated that if 20% of the buyers search one more bank, actually the entire population of those buyers, the borrowers, could save up to $4 billion a year. So I guess this is a very significant amount of money is at the play. Actually, so as you can see, if 20% of the buyers search more, it means that this 20% will be able to compare different prices and buy from the lower price. But also, if these 20% of the buyers will search, the banks would figure out, okay, the consumers now started searching, so I would like to charge lower price, and it will have the second effect on the prices. As you can see, the way the consumers search and how it affects the markets is quite substantial. And now the third, one more question that quite suspicious people might ask is like, well, if we just 20% of the consumers in the mortgage industry had to search just one more and they could save a lot of money, why don't they do it? It's not like not a big deal. Why not to search just one more bank? So actually, search turns out to be very costly. By cost, I mean when you search, let's say if you want to visit one more bank, you have to spend time for that. You have to make an appointment. But also there are other psychological costs. Some people just don't want to go to the buyers and talk to the bank and don't want to talk to them. So there are these psychological costs and time costs. And let me give you an example where the other two researchers tried to estimate in the monetary terms. So there are these psychological and time costs. They wanted to see can be translated into the monetary costs, so that they wanted to have a very good measure of the costs. So they wanted to translate this time and psychological costs into monetary costs. And so they analyzed the computer memory chip industry. So this is we know it as a RAM or a DDR, the memory chips that we use in our computer. So back in the day, when in 2000, the paper was published in 2008. So they were analyzing this market in 2000, I guess, around 4 or 5. So the average price of the memory chips were around $120. And the intriguing finding was that the search costs that they estimated of the consumers, the third of the consumers, were around $12. So which means that third of the consumers that made purchase so this time and psychological costs were around $12.2. So $12.2 is not interesting per se, but if you compare $20.2 to average price, so it's like 10% of the price of the product. So in other words, the search cost actually turns out to be very high, even in the computer memory chips market where consumers mostly search online. So to summarize this, pretty much all the markets that we face can be said search markets because buyers don't have information about the products. And the way consumer search plays an important role. And finally, the search costs of the consumers, of the buyers, is quite high. So we cannot ignore that. So now, what I would like to do in this, what I wanted to do in this paper, I wanted to say, okay, so far the examples that I gave you, they considered only the cases where consumers don't know the prices or the characteristics of the product. But now I would like to find the case where consumers don't know also whether the product is available. Right. So as I gave you an example, before going to the shop, you cannot be sure whether the shop has a product that you're looking for. So in particular, the question that I would like to answer is, what happens if more sellers have the product? Right. So this can mean like, what happens if there are more sellers offering the product, so it's easier for the consumers to find it? And this question is interesting also because, for instance, this greater product availability, I call the term greater product availability, which means that the product is now more available to the consumers, might also represent the matching technology in our online search engines. For instance, when you do search, it's usually let's say Google search. You use Google as a search engine, and then we type the keywords, and then the Google gives us results depending on the keywords that we typed in. And so in the beginning, when the search engines first were developed, the matching was not very good. So you had to go to the second and third pages in order to find the proper match that you want. In this case, proper seller, let's say. The buyers had to go to the second and third pages to find the proper sellers. But now the algorithms of Google has been increasing all the time, improving all the time. It's still improving all the time. And one of the things is that that the Google claims is that now we can, if the buyers want to find something, we can provide them very good results. We can provide them the proper matches. And this kind of reflects that the product might be more available for the buyer if, for instance, the buyer is searching for some product on the internet. And the other implication of this question is the second bullet point, which is a policy intervention. So here I gave you one example. So what this example, what European Commission Small Business Act, what this means is that usually the policymakers would like to intensify competition among the sellers so that the market becomes more competitive. But if there are more sellers in the market, it means also it's easier for the buyers to find the product. It also affects the product availability. And so, this is the main question. And here I would like to give you the summary of the model for the people who are more interested in, who are more in the economics field and who might be more interested in the details of the presentation. So what I do is that I model, it's a theoretical paper, I model search markets with uncertain product availability. So on the one hand, I have sellers. The sellers are identical, they produce homogeneous goods and compete in prices. And the sellers know which of them have the product and which of them don't have the product. And on the other hand of the market, there are buyers. Buyers are identical, they want to buy a product and they don't know which of the sellers have the product and they don't know the prices. So they have to, the buyers have to engage into costly search in order to make a purchase, in order to find the product and then make a purchase. So for the sake of time, I will skip this slide and we'll go to the more interesting part. So in the 2 slides before, I asked the question, what happens if product becomes more available? Is it good for the consumers? So intuitively, it seems that it should be good for the consumers. Like if there are, as I told you, if there is a policy intervention by the European Commission, the European Union, the Commission, and it says, okay, I want to improve the number of sellers in certain market. So there are more sellers in the market, they should compete more intensely, and therefore there should be more competition. That's what our intuition tells to us. And in the case of the online markets where consumers have to search through the online engine, and then the online engine improves its algorithms so that the matches, so that the buyers can easily find the sellers. It also should be good for the consumers because now you don't have to spend too much time as a consumer. You can just find the sellers very easily and compare prices and then make purchase. So all this policy interventions and technological development tells us that if the product becomes more available, it should be good for the consumers. And this is the main point of my paper. I show that this doesn't have to be the case. So what I mean by this doesn't have to be the case is that when product becomes more available, actually the average prices can increase. Now the intuition behind it is as follows. So as product becomes more available, which means that buyers can easily find the sellers, buyers don't want to search too much. In other words, why, as a buyer, I have to spend time and psychological costs of searching a lot of sellers if I can find those sellers very easily? I don't have to do a lot of search. So the buyers, in other words, you can say it becomes a bit lazier after when the product becomes more available. And if buyers don't search too much, it also means that buyers do not compare prices across the sellers. So if you remember, I mentioned this in the beginning of the mortgage market. In the mortgage market, buyers do not save money because they don't search too much. So when product becomes more available, buyers search less. And if buyers search less, they can compare prices less. So they cannot make comparisons. And if they cannot compare prices, and the sellers have incentive to raise prices. So that's the main takeaway. And to be more honest with you, this happens only under certain conditions. It might happen that when the product is more available, it's good for the consumer, there is more competition, but it's not always the case. And then let me tell you when it's not the case. So it's not the case. So the average prices will increase when there is more product availability if the search costs of the buyers are sufficiently small. So what this means is that you can think of online markets. So online markets, in order to find the product online, you just need to type in some words and you just sit in front of your computer and then you can find the product. So there the search costs are smaller, but if you want to go to the regular stores where you have to travel a lot, then there the search costs are larger. So the prediction of the paper is that in the online markets, when the product becomes more available, it's more likely that the prices will be higher. And there is a second condition, which says the initial number of actual sellers is at least 2. What this means is that, so it's kind of a more technical, but I will go through it. Suppose there's only one seller, the monopolist. And if there is more sellers, which means a product is more available, 2 sellers, then the prices will be lower definitely. But if there is, let's say, if you start with 2 sellers in the market, or 2 or more sellers, 3, 4, 5, doesn't matter. And in that case, if we improve the number of sellers in the market, then the average price might increase. So that's pretty much it. And here I just would like to come back to what I told. So we have, as I mentioned to you, the product might be more available because of technological growth, because of matching technology. So usually we say that technological growth is good for the buyers, but I show you the case where it doesn't have to be good. And in the other case is a competition policy. Usually the regulators think that if we increase the number of sellers in the market, it would lead to more competition. And then here I show that actually before taking any measures to increase the number of sellers in the market, the regulators should be very careful. They have to analyze what kind of markets there are, whether it's a search market, whether the search costs are high or low, how many number of sellers there are before implementing such kind of policies. So thank you very much. And I will very much appreciate any comments. So Vipal told me that some of the people might ask questions in Turkmen, and I will, if you ask questions in Turkmen, I will try to give answers in Turkmen. But I'm sorry, but mostly I will try to speak English.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Your timing was good. I want to ask about the first paper about Alexandrov and something K in 2017 published. Yep. It gives a number of 4 billion a year, 20% if they search the second bank research. I mean, if they reached out to second bank and got a rate on eğer şu mortgage alacak adamlar ikinci banktan soran olur, hani olan mortgage'larının prosentini enşedat deyip 20% soran olanı da 4 milyar tışıtlayalır dedim de.
No.
Şu 4 milyardın 1 trilyonu hiç de Türkiye'de yani şolan tışıtlayanı prosentini enşedat yapmışım. Hani 100 milyon, 100 milyarda 4 milyar tışıtlayalar mı? Ya 200 milyarda hani relatifde o tışıtlayan miktarlar şondan yani.
Düşündüm.
Hani kostunu degen okmayı. Hakikaten hani Amerika'da başka birinden almak için bir tür malumat vermeliler.
Düşündüm abi.
Ya da malumatını vermeliler rate almak için.
Let me answer in English. It's a bit easier for me. So
okay.
I would like to say that so they analyze not the entire mortgage. So I have to be careful that I didn't mention. So they analyze only certain types of mortgages, and I don't remember exactly the the total market value of the mortgage market. I can give you the link, and you can take a look at it yourself, or honestly, I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact
No, I understand. I'm not asking you exact number, but are they saving, I don't know, 1% from their total mortgage payments, 2%, 3% in total, or what is the percentage you think?
Yeah, so since I don't remember the actual amount, I can't give you the percentage amount, but I think it was quite substantial. That was the main point of their paper. And they wanted to argue that this is a substantial amount of money, and then the government somehow should encourage the buyers to search, give some directions to the buyers to search more. I think it's definitely, I would say more than 5%.
More than 5%. I
Yeah.
see. Great.
I might be wrong though.
Well, okay. Let's go to the questions. What is the biggest risk that markets, bazaars are facing to find new consumers? So I think it's physical bazaars or physical markets. Question is.
Can I see those questions as well?
Yes, you have Q&A button.
Okay, so it's quite a general question. So, what's the biggest risk that the markets are facing to find new consumers? I can give you the following answer. So, usually, the biggest risk comes when for the sellers to find consumers is during the economic downturns or economic recessions. For instance, one of the economic recessions that we are facing now is the recession due to COVID-19. And so I would say the biggest risk is the economic downturn. Whenever there is an economic downturn, that's the biggest risk for the sellers to find the consumers.
Okay, does this apply to all countries or mostly for developed ones, meaning searching won't cost much except in EU or USA?
Honestly speaking, I don't know, because we need to analyze not only the developed economies but also the developing economies as well. Unfortunately, in economics, we do not have a lot of research that concentrates on developing economies in developing countries. And the reason is that usually it's very hard to find data in the developing countries. That's why since we have a lot of data on the developed countries, a lot of research is done in the developed countries. And to your question about the search, I think search is, it is relevant both to developed countries and to the developing countries. And I think it must be more relevant to developing countries than to developed countries because of the following reason. In developed countries, it's easier to find the things online. So people have internet, they can find things online. And also the governments are taking measures as introducing price comparison websites. For instance, Austria, Germany introduced price comparison websites for gasoline market, for electricity market. But unfortunately, this is not the case in many of the developing countries. So in developing countries, consumers have to especially spend a lot of time to find the product. So I think, if anything, in developing countries, search is more important than in developed countries.
Men şahsi sorum, şimdi sen theoretical argument ediyen mi ya empirical data analiz edip şoňa teoriýany ya da hypothesisyny support ediyen mi? Hiç ile neme görkezmediň onu bile.
Şu wagt istedi oynamdyň teoretически, ýöne Hudaý etelse innik projektim empiriçiski bolar.
Düşünükli. Datany Ýewropamy ya başga bir ýerden ulanmakçymy? Ya belbir han geographic restriction barmy ya tapanyň datany ulanmakçymy?
Tapan datamy aýdarym ýaly eger öz baryan döwletlerin datasyny tapsam öňe bolardy, ýöne aýdarym ýaly Ýewropa ýa-da Amerikanyň datasyny ulanarym.
Amerikanyň
data tapmagyň sadyra.
Düşünükli. In markets, do sellers create new buyers by pushing products into the market that sellers didn't know they needed it, or buyers demand certain products from sellers to make them? Seyran is asking.
It goes more or less in both directions. But lately, I think you would see the first one. So, for instance, with these startups, there are a lot of new products that were being developed that consumers did not know about, that consumers didn't know that they wanted to consume them, and they are pushing into the market. Like good examples are like Spotify. Like before, people they didn't know about Spotify. they introduced Spotify, and then they started heavily marketing it through the word of mouth communication. So I think it goes both directions, but lately we observed the first one rather than the second one.
Everything started with the invention of iPhone.
Yeah, it was definitely a big factor.
Yes. Jahan Taran was asking, if products is more available as a result of technological match, would the prices go down, considering the type of product, basic or luxury, or basic versus luxury?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So as I told, it may go down, but it doesn't have to go down. So in order to find out how the matching technology affects prices, we need to analyze, first of all, we need to estimate the search cost of the consumers. And secondly, we need to find how many sellers are there in the market. So if the search costs are sufficiently small and there are many sellers in the market, then actually the prices might go up. So it's a more empirical question rather than a theoretical question.
So your assumption here is that those research engines are giving you efficient results. How do you verify those search engines are efficient or not?
Yeah, so that's again an empirical question, and it's hard to I don't know, but the thing is that in the best case scenario, let's say the search engines indeed improve our matches, and even in the best case, it doesn't have to be very good. But of course, there are cases where, for instance, Google was not actually was engaged into practices that would decrease this match, and for which I think they got fined by the European Commission like 2 or 3 years ago. So actually, it's not necessarily that they improve the match, but even if they improve the match, if you say that they're correct and improve the match, then it doesn't have to be still good for the consumers.
I see. Even on eBay, when you search something in different hours, it shows you different results. For instance, you want to buy a microchip. If you search in the morning, it shows different products. And I don't know how they do that algorithm, but it doesn't mean that you will buy the cheapest, same product, cheapest at any given time. So their algorithm is different to understand. I guess it is not public as well. So at the end, you don't know whether you're getting enough for your buck. So Devranov is asking, but if there are more sellers of the same product, wouldn't there be a price fighting among sellers, and whoever offers a lower price would attract more buyers?
So that's a traditional intuition and traditional argument in economics. So the more sellers there will be more fighting for the consumers, and then the price should go down. But if you take into account these search markets, when there are more sellers, it might happen that consumers search less. So which means that actually, let's say, in the beginning, initially, consumers would search five sellers, compare 5 prices. And when the number of sellers increases in the market, consumers might get lazy and may search only 2 sellers. And if they search 2 sellers, so in the beginning, every seller had to fight with 4 more other sellers because the consumers were comparing 5 prices. But after there are more sellers, consumers search for 2 prices. So now sellers have to fight with 1 more other seller. So actually, in the search markets, it doesn't matter much how many sellers there are. It matters mostly how many prices the consumers are observing.
Arada is asking, Araz Tomaja, I have always thought that if more sellers offer the same product, buyer will search more and price will go down. But your prediction to conclusion says otherwise. Did I misunderstand you?
No, you did not. That's my conclusion.
I see. So, okay. what kind of specific markets you empirically studied or predict so would fall under your conclusion? Searching increases the prices, this and that.
So as Vipa asked about the empirical part, I haven't studied it, but it's in the agenda. So I would like to, next step in my research is to study the question empirically. And regarding under which types of markets are we more likely to observe my predictions is, as I told you, so it's more likely in online markets. In online markets, search costs of the consumers are quite low, in comparison to offline markets. And usually in online markets, there are more than one seller, with certain exceptions. And I would say the predictions are most likely to be true in the online markets rather than the offline markets.
Okay, so you're using game theory as well, according to your CV, or decision theory? Yes. How do you apply game theory to your work?
Yeah, so any theoretical work in economics uses game theory. So game theory is the important part of the theoretical economics.
Yes.
So I think the person who is asking the question is more or less familiar with the game theory. So I will try to give a more technical answer, which might not be interesting for the rest of the audience. So I'm using a game theoretic approach. And specifically, the game that I'm using is called Bayesian-Nash game. So there is a
Bayesian-Nash game?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, Nash, no, that question is from me, and I studied economics. That's why I'm trying to refresh my memories. Yes, there is Nash equilibrium. Steve Nash, Beautiful Mind movie. So just giving background. Yeah.
So in economics, in this paper, I do not use specifically Nash equilibrium as a solution concept. I use a Bayesian-Nash equilibrium. Because, there is some uncertainty from the side of the consumers.
Okay, anonymous attendee says, Atabek, you should check out hey.com, a new email. Pretty interesting, since email market is kind of, interesting. Thanks, great talk.
All right, thank you very much, and I will definitely check that. Thank you for the comment.
What are your thoughts on global economics in post-COVID era?
This was actually my question that I wanted to ask from our previous presenter, from our ambassador, since he has more experience in economics than I do. Honestly,
and he has PhD degree in economics too. So
yeah, I mean, he has. I don't have it still yet. The thing is that that's a very good question, and it's a very broad question. Honestly speaking, economists, there are some economists that say that COVID-19 will not be like the regular crisis, so we will come back to the normal state of economics very fast. We will not experience too much recession. There is another side that says actually COVID might be as bad as a regular recession, like the financial crisis of 2008 and 9. So we have very little knowledge, as far as I understood from what I read so far, and it's very ambiguous what's going to happen.
Adam, that is asking from YouTube. According to surveys, most Americans believe that their best investment was buying their own homes. Additionally, there are ways to buy homes with zero down. Okay, he knows a lot. So, why do you think Turkmen Americans are falling behind in these huge opportunities? Even if they buy, they almost never think about the second home or third home or so. He's assuming a lot of things like economists do. So do you have any answer? You're living in Austria, but
yeah, falling behind this. If what you're saying is true, that's a very good observation, and I would like to analyze it, but I don't know why that's the case. I can just share you some reasons that might be, but that's just it's just a possibility. It's not. I cannot give you a specific answer. If it's true, then it's a good topic to analyze. Actually,
I see. Well, I don't know who is the anonymous is, but it is interesting why they should fall behind, because most of us, I think, are probably come as students, and we try to meet the ends meet. But yes, anyway, I don't think this is a question. Jahan Taranwa said, I also thought as Araza, prices go down. I'd like to see an empirical evidence in the future. The best scholars are the ones who go against the grain and prove their theory. Good luck, Atabek.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, that's what I would like to do. Let's see how things turn out.
Yes.
Maybe hopefully I will find some proof, the support for my predictions, and will present to you the results of my paper in 2 or 3 years.
Yes, this is the thing. When you are saying, when you say a counterintuitive thing in your paper, that makes it interesting. But when you argue something intuitive and support empirical evidence for your argument, then they say, really? Why didn't you ask me before doing this research? I would already tell you. So, but I guess in economics, it makes it, in any field, to make an counterintuitive argument, and this you're trying to prove theoretically. And I hope you can prove it empirically as well. So it seems like this is our question for now, but I have a question. You had some scholarships to go to American University in Bulgaria.
Mm-hmm.
And you had physics, you were the physics Olympiad winner in Turkmenistan?
Yeah.
It's the countrywide Olympiads?
So I should clarify that one because in physics, during my year at least, so there were republic-wise 2 different sections in physics. In one section, there were students from schools which were specialized in physics and mathematics.
Okay.
And the other section, in the other section, there were students who were competing from the schools which were not specialized in mathematics and physics.
Okay.
So since I am from the school that is not specialized in physics and mathematics, I took part in that in the second section. So I won the first place among the schools who are not specialized in physics and mathematics.
I see. So how did you get that scholarship from American University in Bulgaria? So can people apply and replicate? I'm not scrutinizing your background.
Oh, no, yeah, I understand. I'm not sure whether the scholarship is still available. So what I would like to, since it's a question so that people could later find out information. So first of all, you may want to check the website of American Councils for International Education. So those were the ones together with I think U.S. Embassy in Turkmenistan, organizing the scholarship program. And so what I did was I was back in the day we had an American corner in Tashoguz. Mm-hmm. And I was going there to learn to improve my English by borrowing some books. And then there I was told that there is a scholarship program, and pretty much everyone who would go there, they would know it. So if you still have American corners, you may want to visit them to get the information from them. And I think the American Councils for International Education announces the scholarship if they still have it on the newspapers as well. And so that's the first thing. So first make sure that they still have the program. If they have the program, back in the days, the requirement was, for instance, if you want to study economics, you had to take an exam in English, so TOEFL test, for instance, and in mathematics, SAT mathematics, for instance.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I think the requirements are quite similar to that. You just need to find out whether it's still available.
From physics background, why did you choose economics?
That's a good question. So
did you choose because it was, I don't know, famous at that time?
Yeah. So the American University in Bulgaria doesn't have physics department. And it was a good opportunity to get the scholarship, but they didn't have physics department. And so the choice was between economics and information technologies.
I see.
So I talked to my parents. They recommended economics. So
economics. I see. So are you happy with economics since you are getting your PhD?
So far, I don't regret.
I see. Someone is saying AUBG scholarship is discontinued. Okay, it is. It was an interesting talk. Thank you very much. Even economics can be interesting when it is presented well. Köp başka soru olan yok ya. Right.
All right. Thank you very much, Vipa, once again for giving me
the opportunity. Oh, let me ask you. Your plan to finish next week? If you know it, well, I guess if you're defending it, you're there. What is your plan after graduation?
Yeah, thank you very much. Hopefully I will not fail. So I got a position in Mannheim. It's an institute by Leibniz Institute for Economic Research in the European Union.
Mm-hmm.
So I will be working as a researcher, and the equivalent position in academia will be assistant professor. So I will be moving to Mannheim for the next 6 years at least. And if you happen to be in Mannheim, just let me know. We'll be happy to grab some tea.
I see. All right. I guess that invitation to anyone who goes to Mannheim.
Exactly.
Or is it individual to me?
For anyone, and especially for you.
I see. Well, there might be a lot of Turkmens already there, so.
Oh, I will be happy. I will be very, very happy.
I see. So is it some kind of a postdoctorate program or it's a research program?
So it's an institute. It's not a university. That's like mostly based about the research. So the position is more like a tenure track position of like a traditional 6-year tenure track position.
Oh, so I see. You're then in American version, you're starting like assistant professor.
Yeah.
Oh,
so it is equivalent to assistant professor, but since it's an institute, I think the official title is a researcher or senior researcher or something like that.
I see.
Well, it's equivalent to that.
I see. Great. Congratulations with that position as well. We hope to host you again when you have some empirical evidence.
I'll be happy to.
And we want to discuss. And thank you very much for your time, especially before your dissertation defense. And good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.